one of the biggest global success stories in Asian pop didn't come from a massive entertainment company, flashy media backing, or industry shortcuts. It came from SB19. Yes, you heard that right. SB19 has as one of the biggest global success stories in Asian pop today, and they did it without relying on any big label to carry them there. So the real question is, how did they pull it off? What did they have which others didn't? And what can artists and creators learn from their journey? Well, these are the exact key questions that we will be shedding light on in this video. But before we dive into all of that, please do well to hit like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this. You see, for the longest time, the music industry has sold us one very clear message: if you want to make it big, really big, you need a powerful label behind you.
Dito, sa kaibibo, lahat dinibon. Kahit nung digmaan at daw dadigo, kaya tagusan. Gab ko ng kamalasan ay nag-aabang.
Kita ba sa aking mga mata, mga bagay na hindi mo nakikita?
You need massive budgets, non-stop marketing, and the right connections pulling strings in the background. That's just how it works, or so we're told. But SB19 came in and quietly questioned that entire system. They didn't explode onto the scene with $1 million launch or an army of insiders hyping them up. There was no inherited privilege, no shortcut through industry doors already wide open for them. And most importantly, they didn't sit around waiting for someone else to decide they were worthy of attention. Instead, they chose a different path. They focused on sharpening their skills when no one was watching. They planned every move with intention. They learned how the industry worked, and then learned how to work around it. And little by little, they built something far more powerful than hype, a real community. A fan base that felt involved, seen, and invested in the journey. And that's what set them apart. Not luck. Not connections. Not a massive label safety net. But strategy, discipline, and the courage to bet on themselves. And that's where the story truly begins. Now, let's be real for a moment. Independence only works if the talent is undeniable. You can be independent all you want, but if the skill isn't there, people will move on fast. SB19 didn't walk in relying on good looks or trendy, throwaway hooks. They came prepared. They showed up with live vocals you couldn't ignore. Tight, disciplined synchronization that proved how much work they'd put in. Lyrics they helped write themselves, which gave their music honesty and identity. And performances that felt deliberate, not rushed or random. Nothing about them felt accidental. Every time they stepped on stage, it felt earned, like they knew this moment mattered. Because when you don't have a massive label spending millions to push your name, your performance is your marketing. Your stage presence is your billboard. Your skill is your advertisement. And SB19 understood that early on. They trained relentlessly, even when no one was watching. They listened to criticism instead of running from it. They adjusted, refined, and leveled up with every opportunity.
How could I even pray? And every battle lost, so they celebrate. When it's good to hear they cry when they fail, praying for my down.
And when people finally started paying attention, there was no debate left to be had. They didn't just look like they belonged on that stage. They proved it. Another big reason SB19 didn't need a major label to define them. They already knew exactly who they were. They didn't chase trends or try to sound like a watered-down version of whoever was popular at the time. There was no identity crisis, no pretending to be something they weren't. Instead, they leaned fully into being Filipino, and they treated that not as a limitation, but as their edge. They blended global pop influences with Filipino storytelling. Filipino values. Filipino emotion. The kind that feels raw, familiar, and deeply human. Their music carried the weight of real experiences, real culture, and real heart, and that came through in every song. And that authenticity. It resonated. Not just with fans at home in the Philippines, but with listeners around the world. Because people everywhere are tired of artists who feel manufactured and interchangeable. Polished is nice, sure, but polished without soul doesn't last. Global audiences want honesty. They want voices that sound lived in, grounded, and real. And SB19 sounded real. Now, this is where the story really shifts. You see, SB19 rose at a time when the internet changed the rules of the game. Suddenly, the gatekeepers didn't have all the power anymore. YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, streaming platforms, these weren't just tools, they were equalizers. SB19 didn't sit around waiting for radio spins or TV invites that might never come. They went straight to the people. Straight to the screens in fans' hands. All it took was one performance clip that hit different. One video shared at the right moment. One reaction that made someone stop scrolling and say, "Wait, who are these guys?" And from there, it snowballed. Because in this new era, visibility doesn't come from permission. It comes from connection. Big labels used to decide who got seen and who didn't. Now, attention is something you earn, by showing up, by delivering, by giving people something worth sharing. And SB19 earned every bit of it. Now, let's talk about another thing that SB19 has, which is just as powerful as money, maybe even more powerful. Auten. SB19 didn't just gain fans. They built a community that moved with intention and purpose. This wasn't passive support. This was people showing up, organizing, and taking action. Fans held streaming parties to push the music further. They coordinated hashtag trends that caught global attention. They rallied together for voting campaigns and helped bring SB19 onto international stages. When new listeners showed up curious, Auten was already there, translating content, explaining the story, sharing the journey. They didn't just consume the music. They amplified it. They protected the group when needed. They corrected misinformation. They stood their ground, not out of blind loyalty, but out of belief in what SB19 represented. Auten didn't wait around for a big label to do the promoting. They became the promotion. And that kind of support, you can't buy it. You can't manufacture it. No amount of money can replicate it. It only happens when there's real trust, real connection, and a shared sense of purpose. One of the biggest advantages of not being tied to a massive label: creative freedom. SB19 had a voice in everything, from their sound to their lyrics, from the message they wanted to send to the direction they wanted to take as artists. They weren't pushed to chase trends that didn't fit them, and they weren't rushed into releasing music before it felt ready. Every choice came from a place of intention. That kind of control let them grow on their own terms, both musically and personally. And here's the thing, audiences can feel that. When artists truly believe in what they're creating, it shows. The passion, the authenticity, the care, it resonates. And when that belief is real, listeners start believing too. Going global doesn't mean you have to erase where you come from. SB19 proved that in the clearest way possible. They showed that you can reach audiences around the world without pretending to be something you're not. You can speak to international fans while staying deeply rooted in your own culture. You don't have to strip away your identity to be understood. In fact, it can be the thing that makes you stand out. Their music traveled across language barriers because emotion is universal. You don't need to understand every word to feel the passion, the heartache, or the joy in a performance. And their story resonated because it wasn't some manufactured narrative cooked up by a marketing team. It was real. It was lived. Every struggle, every triumph, every long night of practice, it was all genuine. That's why global audiences didn't just listen to SB19. They connected with them. They saw themselves in the story, felt the authenticity in the music, and understood that here was a group that represented something bigger than just catchy songs. They represented honesty, culture, and heart. SB19 Journey sends a message that's both simple and revolutionary. You don't need a massive label, a fat budget, or a celebrity backing you to make it on the global stage. What you do need is a combination of things that money can't buy. You need skill, the kind that comes from relentless practice, late nights, and a refusal to settle for good enough. You need vision, a clear sense of who you are, where you're going, and how you want the world to see you. You need discipline, the grit to keep showing up, refining your craft, and pushing past every obstacle along the way. You need authenticity, the courage to be real, to own your story, and to create art that comes from the heart. And you need a community that believes in you, fans, friends, and supporters who don't just cheer from the sidelines but actively help lift you higher. Labels can amplify success. They can hand you stages, airplay, and marketing clout. But they can't create it. SB19 proved that. They didn't wait for permission or for someone else to open the door. They built their own momentum, brick by brick, performance by performance, connection by connection. And by the time the world finally noticed, it was already too late to ignore them. They had arrived, not because a label said they could, but because they made it happen themselves. SB19 didn't just break into the global scene, they redefined how it can be done. Their story isn't just inspiring, it's a blueprint. For artists. For creators. For anyone building something from the ground up. Alright guys, that wraps up our video for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments, what do you think is the biggest reason behind SB19 global success? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.